Tommy, we've obviously just watched as Donald Trump joined with Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, basically joining together to defy the U.S. Supreme Court in their ruling that this wrongly deported migrant, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, had to be returned back to the U.S. What are the implications now for the fact that Trump does seem to be openly defying an order from the highest court in the land?
Yeah, I mean, the Trump administration seems to be trying to create a loophole that says if they can just beat the courts, if the courts are unaware that they're deporting someone and sending them overseas and putting them into foreign custody, that they could just wash their hands of it and that there's nothing they can do to fix the situation. And it gets even worse, Brian, because during this pool spray with Bukele, I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but reporters picked up them talking about sending American citizens to El Salvador. So this is some really scary stuff.
What do you think the optics suggest that Trump is standing right next to somebody who fashions himself the world's coolest dictator, those are his words, while he's openly basically inviting a constitutional crisis?
Yeah, I mean, I think to understand Bukele and his power, you really have to understand his mass incarceration regime. I mean, this is a guy who, because of very real violence from gangs, declared something called a state of exception in 2022, where the government of El Salvador just suspended all due process rights. And what they did is they just drove into villages, swept up people at random, and threw something like 85,000 citizens of El Salvador into prison. And that has become the base of Bukele's power. Like, he has made a very real change in terms of safety of the streets. But what people gave up, what citizens gave up, is basically any rights, any due process.
Right.
And so Trump is standing side by side with a guy who throws people in jail, never lets them see a court. They're never heard from again. People are tortured. They are killed. They are starved. They are deprived of water. It is really, really bleak stuff.
What do you make of the fact that both of these guys were kind of mocking the press, mocking Americans more broadly by saying, there's nothing we could do? I mean, you have the president of El Salvador claiming that he can't retrieve somebody from this prison, that the United States is paying El Salvador to house these folks, and then Trump saying that he can't do anything, as if he has no power as the president of the United States to pressure the guy sitting right next to him.
It's just like pure bureaucratic banal evil. I mean, Bukele suggesting that he doesn't control the prisons in his own country. All he would have to do is let this man out of jail, and then he could go to an airport and get a plane ticket and fly home to the United States. You know, all Trump would have to do is say to Bukele, hey, can you do me a solid and get this guy home? And it would be done tomorrow. They just don't want to do it. They want to look for little loopholes and technicalities and pretend that they aren't thumbing their nose at the Supreme Court. But in reality, that is exactly what's happening here.
And so what happens now as far as the Supreme Court is concerned? Because in effect, if they go into court and the Trump DOJ lawyers say the same thing that Trump is saying in the Oval Office, then they're basically openly defying the Supreme Court. And so what happens after that?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think it's worth pointing out that what the Trump administration says in a court of law is very different from what they say publicly.
Right.
Because if you lie in a court of law, you can be sanctioned, you can be disbarred, and there's real consequences. But people like Stephen Miller can go on TV and say up is down, black is white, and seemingly there's no consequences. So it's not entirely clear what happens next. We know that the Supreme Court has seemed very wary of ordering Trump to do things because they seem worried that he might buck them and create a real constitutional crisis. But in a lot of ways, it feels like we were already there.
What do you make of the fact that we kind of expected that the Trump administration would engulf this country into a constitutional crisis at some point? What do you make of the fact that the hill he chose to die on was a ruling that was 9-0 against him? So it's not like he even has some wiggle room. I mean, when you lose Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, it kind of seems like you lost the plot when those guys are to the left of you.
Yeah, that's not a place I'd want to be. I mean, it seems like the Trump administration's meta message is we're going to do whatever we want and no one can stop us. Doesn't matter if you're a court, doesn't matter if you're a member of Congress, doesn't matter if you're a foreign government. They're going to do what they're going to do, whether it's tariffs, deportations, you name it. I do think what we're seeing is a pretty broad, pretty sweeping attack on civil liberties and rights in this country. It is not just people being deprived of due process and sent to a foreign prison in El Salvador where they could be tortured and killed. It is also the sweeping up of college students for speech that the administration doesn't like and stripping away something like 1,000 student visas. So this is a very scary time.
Tommy, let's talk about the political implications of this. I think that Republicans are probably guessing that this is a hill worth dying on because they can kind of get Democrats to be the ones that are putting their necks out there for somebody who, ultimately is just is an immigrant who they can claim is a member of MS-13, and basically drive home this narrative, drive home this wedge that Democrats are the people that are advocating for illegal aliens and gang members. And so, what do you think about the political implications of this?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think Democrats are very wary after the last election about anything to do with immigration. They feel like we lost in part because we look soft on immigration. That's why you're seeing Democrats vote for bills in Congress like the Laken Riley Act,
right,
which are pretty harsh in terms of deportation authorities. And so I think when the administration said, look, this first plane load of 283 Venezuelan men, these are the worst of the worst. They're gang members, they're murderers, they're rapists, there's killers. There was an assumption that that's what actually had happened, because you would think, the very first time you deport all these people to a foreign prison, you would want to actually send the worst people. But what we have since learned is that, according to CBS News, 75% of the people sent to El Salvador have no criminal record either in here, Venezuela, or anywhere. And so what it seems like has happened in practice is ICE just swept up anybody with tattoos,
right,
or who had somehow gotten into their databases seemingly associated with Tren de Aragua or MS-13. And so what I hope Democrats take away from that is to understand that this isn't an immigration issue anymore. This is about human rights and civil liberties and due process in this country, and values that we should all care about as Americans, especially when you understand the slippery slope that could get us to a place where American citizens are being sent to prisons abroad.
And do you think that folks will look at that and we'll make the slippery slope argument. Do you think that is a hysterical argument to make, or do you think that is a well-founded argument to make, judging by the fact that, you have gone from suspected gang members who have proven to be, who've shown themselves to be completely innocent, to college students, to elementary school students who are getting rounded up now?
Yeah, I think we should just take President Trump at his word, and when he says he would love to send American citizens to El Salvador, we should believe him. And he will try to claim that they're the worst of the worst, they're gang members, they're this, they're that. But just remember, this is a guy who can just declare that you're a terrorist.
Right.
These are people who don't care about the facts or the truth. They will target their enemies. They will go after law firms they don't like. They will go after universities they don't like. I mean, this is an authoritarian administration that will do whatever it takes to punish the people they don't like. And I think we should take him at his word.
Yeah, perfectly put. For those who are watching right now, look, it is very important at this moment that we support independent, progressive media. Highly recommend that if you're not yet subscribed to Pod Save America's YouTube channel or Pod Save the World's YouTube channel, I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Make sure to subscribe, help support this whole ecosystem, help grow the voices of folks who are doing good work, and that is exactly what Tommy and his coworkers are doing over there at Crooked Media. So, Tommy, appreciate you taking the time.